is by shining a light on somebody else and sharing their story, whether it's like, a hiring manager or this or that, the light automatically gets shined back on you without you having to say how fucking awesome you are. Like, you talk about somebody else's story, talk about somebody else's success, talk about what the podcast has become is just sharing these stories. And because of that, about it, so many episodes in, people are like, hey, Ben. And I'm like, why me? Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you reaching out? Like, go reach out to the guest. The guest is awesome.
Are you ready for the raw, unapologetic realities of reclaiming your life? Me too. So turn into the Takeover Unfiltered podcast hosted by, yours truly, Brianna Rooney, Millionaire Recruiter, and Taylor Bradley, the humble hustler. We're pulling back the curtain on our personal lives and sharing the ups, downs, and everything in between. From navigating relationships to juggling self-care routines, we are laying it all out on the table. You're welcome. We're all about taking control and making shit happen.
So expect raw, candid talks seasoned with some, of course, uncensored language. It's time to own your journey, embrace the chaos, and unleash your inner badass. So buckle up, because we're about to take you on a wild ride to self-discovery and empowerment. But don't worry, we're still dishing out some valuable insights into the recruiting world. It's all about finding that balance between work and play, and we're here to show you how it's fucking done.
You're ready to kick some ass and rewrite the rule book? Grab your favorite drink, cozy up, and join us for some real talk you are not going to want to miss. Hey, all right, now we're on. We're laughing hysterically already, which is per usual, Taylor. But we've got Benjamin Mena here, who we're like, all right, hold a smile. And he's like, and yes, you can watch this on YouTube. All right, so welcome, Ben. How are you doing? Taylor, how are you doing? What's going on today?
I'm doing great. We were just talking offline about the craziness that Taylor's been going through. So I'll let her share that. Like, I'm worried for her.
We're thriving over here in tornado land in the Dallas area, thunderstorms and all of that. But other than that, I'm good. I still have power right now, so that's a positive. It's not, hey, I think there's like 1 million people without power in the DFW area right now. So, yeah, without internet, y'all, and the kids home for summer, it's like, ooh, that's brutal.
Oh, that'd be no TV. Oh God,
no TV, no tablet, no nothing. Yeah,
I mean, you have to talk to them. That sucks.
Oh yeah, like card games and conversations and killing it. I'm kidding.
How soon can you get them started on recruiting? Like, hey, go find this this person for me. Call them up.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Actually, so I'm so excited. I'm going into my son's class next week to talk about entrepreneurship, and I am jazzed. So I'm gonna put some thing together, maybe like a little think tank. Maybe invest in a couple of them. Who knows? I'm super excited about it.
They're still in school?
Yeah, for another week. Week and a half. Okay, well, let's get to the show, right? I'm sure, Brianna, what are you guys talking about today? What is going on? And Ben's like, thanks for bringing me on. This is what we do. We just shoot the shit.
You gotta have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've known Ben just for a little bit because you're all over LinkedIn. I don't know who doesn't know you at this point. But your Elite Recruiter podcast is great. And I was on a few weeks ago, and we just started talking, and we were talking about branding and building and marketing and all that stuff. And he was like, yeah, it's like I just kind of built a brand on accident, which is what we're going to talk about today. And essentially, I know we've had a couple things talking about, hey, how do you brand yourself? How do you do brand marketing for recruiting in general? But Ben wants to talk about today, how do you build a brand that's not about you? And I was like, what? So I want to hear about that. First, tell me more.
I mean, here's the thing. In the recruiting space, whether you're internal recruiter, whether you're external recruiter, whether you have your own business, here's the problem. Most of us believe that the work that we do, we should be known by that. And yes, it works. That's how you get referrals. That's how you do those things. But at the end of the day, how many people really know about you based on the work that you do? 25, 30, 50, 40 people max? I mean, it's a great circle to have those people. But here's the thing. People don't know how good you are unless you find ways to tell them. And I, myself, have never been one of those me people. I hated the word branding up until about a year ago. I hated when somebody talked about that kind of stuff because I'm like, I don't want to sit there and scream on the rooftops about how fucking awesome I am. Want to cuss?
Oh, man. Please. I was actually just intro excited about it.
Yes. Your stock went up.
But it was just one of those things. I'm like, I'm not about like sitting there like telling about how awesome this is and how awesome that is. And I feel like there's so many other recruiters out there that like, that's just not part of their normal DNA.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I've realized over time is by shining a light on somebody else and sharing their story, whether it's like, you know, a hiring manager or this or that, the light automatically gets shined back on you without you having to say how fucking awesome you are. Like you talk about somebody else's story, talk about somebody else's success, talk about the, like, yeah, just like what the podcast has become is just sharing these stories. And because of that, about it, like, you know, so many episodes in, people are like, hey, Ben. And I'm like, why me? Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you reaching out? Like, go reach out to the guest. The guest is awesome. But you can accidentally build a brand, but you could like, that's what I did. Or you can work on building your own personal brand without the me. So that was my thought.
No, I love that. I love that you said making about the guest. And I love that you like, I feel like LinkedIn is so oversaturated right now with people that are just like me. And so I think that gives you kind of a competitive edge, and it is a little bit different of a spin on, you know, actually building a personal brand, is that you're not making it about yourself, which again, everybody is making it about them. I mean, I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I feel like that's all anybody's doing. It's like everyone's a personal brand now on LinkedIn.
I mean,
Right?
like oh yeah, absolutely. Like the personal branding, like people are finally catching on to like, oh crap, I need to do this. And like, I had to jump on the bandwagon too, but like now with everybody talking about it, you got to also find ways to differentiate yourself even more.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And like, if you're sitting there highlighting somebody else, well, you know, I'll use Brianna as the example, you know, sharing the podcast that I did with her, which was absolutely phenomenal. Please go back and listen to it. Make sure to follow this podcast. But here's the cool thing. Like, I really didn't, like when I posted that, I didn't say really a thing about me, except for like, here's some of my favorite takeaways.
Yeah.
But when you share an interview with somebody else, you tap into their entire network. So every single time that I like, you know, in future videos and that kind of stuff, like share Brianna, every single person in her network sees it. And then they associate like me with her. And that's what you can do with like an industry podcast. That's what you can do, like sharing stories of your industry. If you were working in like, we'll say artificial intelligence, for example, you share a story with an AI leader, it's sharing in your network, but every single person in their network sees that tag. And then you do that time and time and time again. And you become one of the go-to people in that circle of artificial intelligence, because every single leader is like, oh, they've been associated with Benjamin. They've been associated with Benjamin. They've been associated with Benjamin. So you're not having to sit there and say, hey, look the fuck at me. Hey, look how awesome I am. I'm fucking awesome. You could be like, hey, that person's the shit, and here's why they're the shit. That person's the shit, and that's why they're the shit. That person's the shit, and that's why, this is exactly why I believe that they're the shit. And you do enough of that, people are going to come back and look at you like, oh, you must be the shit too. And you're just like, I am? Okay, sure. But I'm here to help you.
It's all like the social proof. It's like rubbing elbows with, you know, all the rich people. It's like, oh, I want to go to this. Like, okay, yeah, good example. You know, we did Inc. 5000. What was that? Was that 2 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
Like, where did it go? Yeah, okay. And you know, it's like rubbing elbows with all like these fans. Oh, we were there. Oh my God, look at all these people here. And, you know, it's so cool. And then they just associate you with success. And what did you do? And all of a sudden this starts like, you know, having this domino effect. And after I was on your podcast, I got hit up. I reached out to you. I'm like, holy moly, you got quite a following. I got hit up by so many different people. So it happens both ways. And like, oh my God, I just found you. And I was thinking to myself, wow, you just found me? I'm over here working my ass off with my YouTube. And like, I just found with your Ben's podcast. That was cool.
I mean, but it's one of those things. It's like, you know, I think a lot of people, when they think about social branding and think about branding and that kind of stuff, it's like everybody's already doing it. Like in reality, no. Like how many recruiters? Like just in the DC metro, there's 26,000 recruiters. In the United States, what is it? Something like between agency, internal, and all that stuff, something like 600,000 recruiters, or maybe even more. Like it's.
I would have thought there'd been more than 600,000, but that's interesting. That's interesting.
I mean, like I'll Google it again, and like once I get off and watch it be like way more. But like think about that.
Yeah.
Like how many? Even though like we're in the circles within our community, there are so many other people that are not. There are so many other people that don't live on like the places that we live on. Like you guys live on like YouTube. Like you guys are demolishing it in our space on YouTube. But like I've up until like maybe 6 months ago, I didn't even touch YouTube. I didn't even like look at recruiting on YouTube. It wasn't until like I actually started like trying to put together a podcast list and a YouTube list. I was like, oh, like hey, there's some really good people out there. But I mean, that's the same thing with like every single thing that you're doing. When you think it's oversaturated, it really isn't. When you think that somebody else is like doing it better, guess what? You add your own spin to it. Add your own flavor of ice cream. Add your own whatever you want to do to make it your authentic story. And yeah, I think those are the things that's going to really separate yourself in building a brand in 2024, 2025, because we're now competing with AI.
And so
How do you do that?
So for people that don't have a podcast, because I know we're talking a lot about like, podcasts, but for people that don't have one, you could simply spotlight, going back to your original point, you could simply spotlight somebody, like reach out to people, find a mentor, have a conversation, and then you could spotlight those people on LinkedIn. Like here, like exactly what you said. Here's why this person's the shit. So I know we're talking, you don't have to have a podcast to, spotlight somebody else, right? Like the other people that are trying to build their personal brand can certainly do that by spotlighting people just that they're having conversations with. I love that.
I actually did this for 6 months. I committed to 6 months of this. It was like June and July when I started it, and I was going to do it through the end of the year. But I did a follow Friday where I actually got their profile pictures, put them together, and I'm like, hey, these are some of the people that I follow. And I actually tagged each one of them and gave the people on LinkedIn, this is why I believe that I follow them. And this is why I believe that you should follow them too.
Great idea.
So you don't have to hop on an interview, be on a camera, be on a podcast. You can just be pick 3 people on Friday. These three people in the space are why you should be following these people too. You do that for a good 2 months and people are going to be like, hey, you seem to know everybody. Actually, I don't really know them, but I've been following them for a while. But it starts associating. It's like you said, building that social proof without saying, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the authenticity part because I know even in the Millionaire Recruiter program that we do, it's like we're trying to teach people what their voice is, and not a lot of people even know how to grasp. Like how you said, I don't even know why I'm great. Well, you got to figure out though why you're great, and you still have to stand strong. So how do you what's your recommendations for that? How do people even work through that?
I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems that recruiters have. I really think that's one of the biggest challenges that so many recruiters have is understanding why they're good. Spend some time, build out a list of the positions that you filled. Well, look at the companies that you've supported. And this is one of the things I talk about in the government contracting space. Understand the impact of the positions that you're filling. You might be we fill stuff, and we've filled stuff over the years that we watch the news, and it has impacted national security. So at the end of the day, when I have a bad day, I'm like, fuck, I've helped that. I've helped save America based on hiring the right person at the right time to be in the right position to do this. So let me break this down more in the GovCon space. In government contracting, and real quick, government contracting is just a very, very complex staffing company. That's all government contracting is. But the way government contracting is set up, perfect example, I've supported a $550 million program across 18 countries, supporting about 150 people. It was me and one other recruiter that did that. We did all the recruiting for it, staffed it up, got it done. What happens if we don't staff that contract up? That entire company can lose business with working with the federal government. So you have to sit back and understand the numbers. Okay, yeah, we staffed up a 150 person contract, but this contract was actually worth also 550 million. Okay, before that, I supported another contract that was worth 35 million. I staffed that up. Before that, it was a $150 million contract. And by the end of the day, at least in the government contracting space, because I've been around it long enough, I'm I'm about $1.2 billion worth of contracts that have been filled. And real quick, when you hear that, that's not my staffing fees, but that is the exactly. But you have to start actually putting down the success that you've had. You need to spend time. If you're listening to this, spend 30 minutes this weekend and write down who you've placed, where you've placed them, what they've done, the impact that they've made to their jobs. And once you actually understand those things, it can help you reframe the story in your head of like your own story of like how you can be successful in the recruiting space and how you can find your voice. And then next week, spend some time like just thinking about that. Okay, so that one position that I filled actually saved that company. It saved the company 30%. It saved, like, if you're in software, the 5 software developers that you hired, like, think about this. That company would not have been able to put out that product without you. That company would have never gotten their Series A funding if it wasn't for you recruiting the right people. That company would not be successful if it wasn't for your job as a recruiter to move the needle, hiring the right person at the right time. And now you have to internalize those stories and understand the worth that you have. And that's what helps you find your authentic voice.
Woo! Preach.
Yes. So,
Like,
Sorry.
I got the money chills over here.
Yeah.
That was put so well. First of all, I hope every company in the universe listened to that, because they don't give us, like, no one's going to give us our own awards, right? We have to, like, we're the ones that have, like you said, that have to shout it from the rooftop and internalize that. That's why I have my growth and success journal, because without it, it's like, what did I do? What did I do? And like, if you're lost and you don't have like a clue on how do I affect this? How do I affect my kids? How do I do? It's like you're kind of walking through life like a zombie. You know, it's difficult. It's difficult to feel like you didn't impact anything, but you did.
I mean, it's that's easier for an experienced recruiter, but if you're just getting started out, like, you can also lean on the success of your team, or lean on the success of somebody that you even coached into a new position. You can find those small successes, and then you want to just build another small success, another placement, another small success, another placement. I just help, even though I didn't place this person, I still helped them get to where they wanted to go. And now I can use that story for my own story. And real quick, there are so many recruiters that I've had on the podcast that have made clients out of the people they actually didn't place because they did such a great job with the relationship building. So.
And so how do we use these stats? I know you said that it's like, use it so that you could feel your wins. Do you use those stats at all for personal branding?
Sometimes I do. I probably should more. When it comes to the government contracting stuff, like we do talk about the numbers because that's what clients understand.
Sure.
So we do, but probably we should lean into that heavier. We've really leaned into the podcast, and the podcast has created an omnipresence that's really helped us in other places with our brand, outside of having to pitch.
Well, I feel like the way that you had put it is like, it's just such cool stats that you're not, look at me, look all I did. Actually, like, it's just, we're just talking about impact. So I think I love that. I know I really struggle. So when you first started talking earlier, I really struggled with shouting from the rooftop what I did. Like I wouldn't even go after recommendations of people I didn't place because I felt like I didn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
But now, as an experienced recruiter, I can say, actually, oh my God, I was their career therapist. I helped them negotiate. I helped them even like go through and practice interviewing. Like, there's so many impactful moments you have with every candidate, every client. Same with clients. If I didn't like place, because with tech, it's like, you don't have 150 positions, unfortunately. Like, here's spies. But yeah, if like I'm not placing someone, it's kind of like I want to go in a corner and like put my head down, like my little tail. I'm like, oh, shit, I didn't do a great job. I suck, and it's like, you don't even want to talk to them again. And I think that it's really hard, even throughout the years, it's really hard to find what you did well, especially if you work on contingency. It's an agency recruiter. That's hard.
And I mean, that's why like you have like your own success journal, like a way to go back and look at that. It's, like it's why I believe that you should write it down, whether on paper or write it down digitally, because the more that you see it, the more subconsciously you also realize what you've done. And it's one of the things that really is the difference between a big biller, somebody that's done great, sold their company. It's the mindset. And there's so many little things that go and affect your mindset every single day that you like either take it down or build it back up. And there's many times that you have to go work on repairing your own mindset and not relying on the outside factors. So it's these little things that you have around. Hey, guess what? It was a shitty ass week. It's just been a shitty month. I haven't made a placement in 3 months, but you know what? I've done this, this, and this. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep putting in the work, and that I'm going to keep laying the seeds that are going to come up tomorrow. They're going to come up next month. They're going to come up a year from now. But I also know that because I've done this before, I need to keep going.
It's so true. I often find that I have to like redefine what success means for me, for myself, like over and over and over again. Because and Brianna and I have talked about this on previous episodes where, you know, I used to think, and I know you guys are gonna be like, whatever, it's so not 2024 mentality, but I used to think it was like about title and about how much money I was making, and I had to just constantly be growing each year, you know? And if I wasn't doing that, then I'm like, oh, I've failed, you know? And so I've redefined success for myself like a million times over. And really these last 3 years, it's been a lot of that. And it can change, honestly, depending upon the week, the month. But I think exactly what we're talking about is great, you know, for our listeners as far as like keeping track of all of that stuff, because it's really easy to get down on yourself if you have had one definition of what success is for 10 plus years and you never change that. And it's just not realistic to assume that you can never change what your definition of success is. And so I kind of had that moment, especially as I was seeing shit on LinkedIn about it. It took something happening for me for it to click where I'm like, I need to redefine what success is for me, because I am failing based on how I was measuring it before, but I'm not actually a failure. And here's why, and kind of outline it for myself. And, you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of is all the people that I've gotten pay raises for or promotions for throughout the years that I've been managing, like 16 plus years that I've been managing. And I'm like, seeing them grow in their careers and do these amazing things on LinkedIn. And it just like, I get this like proud mama bear, even though I have nothing to do with it at this point. I still just get so like proud of them for what they've accomplished. And so, you know, redefining your success. And I think going back to tying this into personal branding, redefining your success and, you know, spotlighting that a little bit, whatever that looks like. You gave some great examples of that, Ben, where it's like, here's this amazing person I placed and look at how much of a badass they are, and putting a post up about that. But I think for our listeners, any ideas and insight and tips that we can give them on, you know, how they can personally brand themselves and maybe use their own personal definition of success or the wins that they've had to do so.
Well, let me do a few jump on a few different things. First of all, if like I think you just said something that was absolutely fantabulous, is you're sitting there looking back at the people that you've placed and have watched them grow in their career.
Yeah,
I highly recommend to the listeners, if you see that, actually send them a direct message. Send them a message. And even if it's somebody that you placed like a decade ago and you still like are watching them from far, actually just even share that on LinkedIn. Like, man, I'm so glad that I got to, you know, do this, like help, you know, the transition a decade ago. It's been amazing to watch your career grow.
Yeah.
Keep on crushing it and make that a public post.
Yeah. I'm watching you.
Yes.
I mean, we're recruiters. We're professional stalkers. That's all. That's a whole nother subject, though.
No, and I love that. I love the different ways like this, like different ideas for people again that don't have podcast platforms. Like, how can they go and differentiate themselves from these other people trying to build brands? And again, you know, not making it about them. You've kind of said all of that beautifully, how to do that, Ben.
And I also loved what you said about success. And I don't like, it's kind of hard for me to turn off my podcast interview. I'm like, so let's talk about exactly how that, like that moment changed everything. But like, here's the thing about success is like over time, it changes. Yeah. And what you thought was your definition of success no longer many times becomes the motivating factor.
Yeah.
So figure out, spend some time, you know, journal. Like what Brianna said is like, spend some time journaling and figure out like what motivates you again. Like it could have been money. It could have been the fast cars. It could have been like bragging to your friends. Like, oh yeah, I make this amount of money. Could be like, you know, telling somebody to fuck off. Like I'm successful. Or it could be like your life has changed and success now doesn't mean as much money. It means time.
Yeah. That's what changed big for me was time. After I had kids, I was like, yeah, obviously you still want to build and build and build, and you need money to get time, right? But it was just different. Yeah, it didn't mean that I made less. It's just motivated me in a different way. And I think even with like some of the best recruiters, I actually thinking of someone right now, normally it's like if a recruiter isn't hungry for money, then they're not very good as far as agency goes. I'm like, but I had this one recruiter whose family was like insanely rich, right? And it actually worried me. I was like, shoot, she's not going to have any motivation. She's got this insane trust fund, but she was one of the hardest working recruiters because I figured out what motivated her. And what motivated her was hitting goals. She graduated from college in like 3 years. So I was like, okay, so I had to figure out what carrot to dangle. But everyone has a different carrot that they're chasing.
And here's the thing, not every manager also spends the time. One, spends the time. Two, gives a shit. Or three, understands how to figure out what that carrot is. And many times, like if you're early in your career, or even like later on in your career, like when your definition of success has changed, you many times don't realize that that carrot for yourself has moved, which is why I'm like, spend some time. Or if you're a manager, like get to know the person enough to figure out how to help them move the needle for their own selves.
I love that. So recently I was talking to someone who was like, hey, how did you start Techies when you were 24? Like, what exactly did you do? I'm like, I can tell you what I did, but it's totally different today. Like the market's changed, the technology has changed, this changed, it's like, what would you do now? But when I was trying to build like talent purchase diversity, I was trying to find my inner 24-year-old, like the one who didn't give a shit about anything, the one who was like, fearless, who didn't need money, who had nothing. Like, but the fact of the matter is I'm not that person anymore.
Yeah.
So to try to dig at that level doesn't make any sense. And I was like beating myself up on it because I wasn't operating in that same manner where I'm like, wait, not even like, thank God I'm not that person anymore. There's so many things that was wrong with me when I was 24, so it's like such an asshole. But like but it took me a long time, honestly, with a lot of help with my coach to figure that out. Like I was punishing myself for not operating in my 24-year-old manner. I was like, that doesn't make sense.
I mean, but it's like hard not to think about that. And it is one of the things, like I also tell people too, is like, you got to sometimes look back in your past and like, what motivated you? And like many times, like the farther you are in your career, like you don't have the time to go grind it out 18 hours a day. You don't have the time to, tell everybody the world to just screw off. I have a tiny human at home that's 7 months old that like does need attention. Like you also need to factor that you're in a different place in your life. But with everything that you've learned, you also now know how to work smarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that same grind isn't even required, really.
Yep.
Oh, guys, I hate to do this, but we are at time. I know. So Ben, do you want to go ahead and hit the listeners with your broke to boss tip?
Broke to boss tip. I think the biggest thing is, if you've been broke, spend some time remembering the time that you were broke. Remember the time that like you didn't have a car and you had to sit there and like take the bus to the recruiting office every single day. And you got there before everybody got there, and you left after everybody left because nobody gives a shit if you don't have a car. Nobody gives a shit if you're broke. They don't care about your story. But you need to figure out what works for you. You need to figure out the motivation and then latch on to people that are winning. Grab their coattails, virtually grab their coattails if they're in the office, move your desk to be next to these high achievers, because staying close to them is going to have such an impact on your career. Like I'm talking millions of dollars over the course of your life from changing your desk from one side of the office to the other because you just want to grab on the coattails of some of the best successful people. And if you don't have that person in your office, listen to a podcast by Taylor and Brianna. Watch their YouTube videos. There's so much information out there that you could change your life by changing who you are, changing your habits, and changing your mindset. But don't forget those times where it just fucking hurt.
And cried in the corner.
Amen.
Yeah. Oh my God. So I always do this. Taylor, normally you go, do you have anything else to say, Brianna? Because I always take this away.
You always got some shit else to say. You always got something else to say. Shit. Be here all day.
Well, Ben just triggered something. So a few years ago, my coach said to me, you're only as good as the 5 people you surround yourself with. And that hit hard. I mean, I was like, all right, bye you. But you're right. It's like if you're around like some of the best personally, professionally, it will naturally boost you up. It's like my son's now wrestling, which is so exciting. So he used to wrestle. So he's wrestling. I'm like, he wrestled a 14-year-old. So I'm like, he's 10. I go, you go wrestle that guy. He was like, I don't want him. I'm like, nope, he's going to make you better. And sure as shit, he got destroyed. But guess what? Now he's better. He went back to practice and kicked some ass on Tuesday. He's like, thank you so much for pushing me to be with the best. It's like, that's the only way to be better. Someone's always better than you. Always.
And here's the cool thing. The power of social media, you can curate your friends list. You can latch on virtually to people, and they don't know you're latching onto them, but you can like curate your friends list. So you're following, learning, and listening to some of the best people out there without sitting there like, hey, can I have like 45 minutes of your time every single day? Like there's so many of these people have shared stuff for free that you can just jump into. But if not, also grab a coach too. That could completely change your career.
Absolutely. 100%. Changed mind. Awesome. I love this. Okay, fine. I'll let you guys go. We're going to do it again. Ben, thank you so much. And don't forget to also listen to his podcast. We got the Elite Recruiter podcast, which is awesome. Taylor, any last words?
No, I'm good. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you guys. Make sure to keep on following Taylor. Make sure to keep on following Brianna. They're making amazing changes in our industry. They're like really just a shining light that our industry needs. So like follow them because they are some of the best of the best.
I'll take that, Ben. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.